That's right, folks. Another episode of Model Railroad Talk. In this episode, we are talking about a modeler's license. What's a modeler's license? Well, we're going to dive into that. If you've heard that term before, maybe you haven't, and you'll learn what it is. So if you do hear it down the road, also we kind of talk about in the second half we go into not really track cleaning particularly, but track cleaning products and how I made my own track cleaning car. And of course, we read interesting fact from our book of 400 thrilling and unbelievable train facts. So stick around because we're going to get the show on the tracks. Welcome to episode 92, my friends. As we stated, both in the title and the intro, we are talking about using a modeler's license. Some people have heard this term. Others are probably like, what? What does that mean? So we are going to kind of go through what is a modeler's license in our our hobby. What does it mean? And I guess um just to kind of long story short, a modeler's license kind of backs up the old saying of it's your railroad, do what you want, right? So if you look up on Google what a modeler's license is, it will tell you, there's different ones, but basically, artistic license is where it's going to show, which means you have to have a written um, agreement between somebody who maybe designed a model, whether it doesn't matter what kind of model, I guess, and yourself to be able to use it publicly or create whatever it is, that kind of thing. That's not what we're talking about here. What we are talking about in model railroading is, well, let me just read this. This actually is coming from trains.com. Modeler's license is the term that describes a model builder's creative liberties he or she has taken with a certain subject. Okay. So, what does that really mean? Does that apply to us? As far as the legality side of it, the general, the official non-model railroading term, does that really apply to us? Not really, unless you are, say, taking a model, somebody's design, and 3D printing it, or even scratch building it with styrene and stuff like that, and trying to sell it, and it is an exact replica of that person's um, design. Okay, then yes, you probably would have to have some sort of agreement, license, whatever you want to call, between you and said person or company, right? And but that does that really, if you're not doing that, we fall under the model railroading modeler's license, which I just read from trains. And you know, you often hear it used when someone is modeling. Oh, I don't want to say like anything like specific, but let's just say you have somebody that's modeling an area. Okay. Um, a good example, our good friend Benjamin, and we'll have him on here again, but he is rebuilding his Kansas City Southern Railroad. And I know I've been working with him, or in the past, I should say, I worked with him. He got my opinion on some things as far as there's a certain bridge he's building. And unfortunately, there are only a certain amount of pictures that are available, and looking at Google and stuff like that, Google Earth, you still can only see so much, right? So based on these pictures, you can't get a um, good view of this particular bridge. And okay, well, it's got piers, and I don't remember. It's been a little bit since I look at, but it's got piers. It's got a plate girder, plus the embankment comes down at it's a really cool bridge, the setup, but and we can only see one side, so trying to figure out are the trusses underneath the one side? How many are there? How far back do they go? Does the embankment go? How far down does the embankment go? What did they do on the other side? That kind of thing. And so that's a good example of him using the quote unquote modeler's license, and the fact that he is trying to build it as prototypical as possible. However, without having 100% or near 100% of information, whether it be, written or photos, it is going to be almost impossible for him to get it exact. He can get it close. So that's where he will be using modeler's license, as you may hear throughout the hobby, especially if you're new to the hobby. Um, of He's using his best judgment to replicate this part of the railroad, this bridge, in the best way can, and make it as plausible as possible. And we see that a lot. And another thing would be, on structures. Let's face it, sometimes we get lucky if we're modeling a specific structure. Going back to Benjamin again, he worked with Mud Creek Models to get a, a, a a station, if you will, passenger station or whatever, um, created. And if you go over there, that's Zahner's depot. But he worked with them and sent them the plans that he had. And unfortunately, the back side was the only side that he didn't have any drawings. There were no photos. There was nothing available for that particular depot station. And so between him and Frank over at Mud Creek Models, they used a modeler's license to, well, what potentially could, what other depots, what do they have on the backside of the depot? What generally do they have? A door, some windows, maybe an overhead, whatever. And they used a modeler's license in that aspect. That would be the same with it can be the same with rolling stock and locomotives, as anything you're modeling. And it doesn't have to necessarily be you're modeling prototype either. Let's say, well, as a prime example for me, the Kansas City Southern that I'm now backdate a little, it's now the Kansas City Southern Iowa Eastern Division. So while I am trying my best to uh, model equipment, and I'm starting out with the locomotives first, and then I'll start working on the rolling stock. Plus, trying to get all my switches and everything, basically get the railroad operational. But I I have one particular, well, I have a couple of them, but one that I've been working on off and on, my SD40-2 snoot nose and that particular road number. And I have looked for pictures. Okay, where's the horn placement? Where, ditch lights, or what, specific details, maybe add-ons that they have done through time, and unfortunately, that particular locomotive, there's maybe a small handful of pictures, and using the air horn placement as an example, there really are no top shots of that locomotive, pictures of the top. So, however, I have seen some side views on both the both engineer side and conductor side. So I was able to relatively closely figure out where the air horns are. They weren't on the cab. They were back by the dynamic, basically on the dynamic brake lift out section, and where the exact placement was as far as how far in from the edge. I I don't have any drawings. I don't have any photos of the top to where I can make a better judgment. But I do know that on that particular locomotive, it was on the conductor side more. So I used modeler's license. Okay, well, it's in. I know it's in this area. It's as close as I potentially can get until maybe more pictures surface. Then I can, at that point in time, remove it and move it over. If it's, I mean, obviously I'm not going to move it if it's just, we're talking a micrometer of just a little bit, but that's where it's coming from. And we can use that, especially if we're either freelancing or proto freelancing as well. Um, you don't have to be stuck to a prototype, and if you're proto freelancing, or even if you're just freelancing and you're trying to model something that looks real and what could be or what could have been, using a modeler's license in our model railroading terms, as I read from um, trains.com, it allows us as a modeler to be able to do not necessarily what we want, but what we feel is right for our railroads that we're building. Okay. Um, it's something as simple as, okay, it's a fictitious railroad, but you're kind of taking parts from, say, small towns or whatever, right? Well, small town, this particular small town, you may be kind of modeling or getting ideas from. Okay, well, the gas station was on the north side of the tracks, but you're going to put it on the south side of the tracks. Kind of the same thing. When we're either freelance or proto freelancing, you're always using a modeler's license in that aspect. But even on the prototype side, you have, people think, well, if you're a prototype modeler, you have everything right in front of you. You have the real life. You have the prototype. You have the, not prototype, but you have the real railroad, that, or even in the past, you've got something that tells you what to do. Well, not everything is available as far as information, photos, that kind of thing. So that's where a modeler's license, if you've heard the term that and quite didn't understand it, or maybe you've never heard the term before, now you have, it is something that a lot of modelers will use, for, because they weren't able to get the information they needed, or they just couldn't figure out a section, that kind of thing. And partially where this comes from, because I've been, beings that I've kind of converted my railroad backdated it a little bit, to where it's just the Kansas City Southern, even though there will be CP equipment and it's modern day. But anyways, I've explained that before, so I won't go into that again. But I actually, and I'm not cutting down anybody for their thoughts or their comments, but my last YouTube channel or YouTube video, my update I did, at that point in time, I had my railroad, like I have basically right now, I have got my bulk, if not all my cars and locomotives on one side of the railroad, because I'm working on getting switch machines hooked up to toggle switches and stuff like that. And I'm getting close to getting that done, but I actually have two track cleaning cars. One, it's still in the box, but the other one is on the railroad. They're ones I made. Um, what I did was I reached out to our friend Scott from Scotch Trains, and I said, "Hey, I need uh, two basically 40-foot cheapest box cars I can get, and um, I'm making it into a track cleaning car. So I don't care what it is. I mean, and so he got me one, and yes, it's a 40-foot box car. It has the roof locks on it. I did go and change um, the reporting marks on it. This was back before I chose to take the Iowa Eastern Railroad and convert it into the Iowa Eastern Division of the KCS. But so it's got, which is I'm fine with, IERC reporting marks, which it's my railroad. I do what I want. But yes, I'm modeling modern day. Roof walks are not allowed or whatever on railroads now and stuff like that. And I've got other boxcars on the railroad that they have roof walks on them. My plan is once I get the the construction done and I'm actually operating, so like where I'm at now, like I stated, doing the switch machines and stuff like that, I am planning on going back, removing roof walks, making them, modernizing them, and adding, I like to add detail, taking off the plastic handrails and putting metal ones on and that kind of thing. So, but these two particular cars, the one in general that I had on the one in particular, I should say, on the railroad, it's a track cleaning car. I run it around, especially where I'm not running trains a lot right now. So anytime I do run a train for any reason, I hook it up so it will, at least try to clean some of the track. And I chose a 40-foot box car. I had looked online how people had made them when I did make this one. So, and I'll get into this another time, but it was suggested for the style of track cleaning car I built to use a 40-foot box car. You can get more weight. It concentrates. It's easier for cleaning. Your cleaning pad doesn't wander as much. That kind of thing. So when I got it, yes, when I built it, when I got it, it was a kit, an Athearn Blue Box kit. I go and I'm like, well, put the roof walks on or do I not? I'm like, you know what? It's a track cleaning car. I want it to stand out a little bit because of it being a track cleaning car, because I don't expect one to be running when I do get up and operating the railroad. I don't expect every train that goes out to have a track cleaning car on it, but I want at least one, eventually two, once I get the other one back out and get more cars on the railroad. I'm going to have one on the upper level, one on the lower level, and whether it is during an operating session or just me running trains, I'm going to put it in there, that in there and run it around, obviously to help clean the track. So I want it to stand out from the rest of the cars. So yes, it's a 40-foot box car, um, roof walk on it, and the whole purpose to stand out, right? Well, I happen to had it on a siding, on my on one of my siding tracks, and I had one of my ET 4400 locomotives sitting in front of it. Well, I happened to use that one to grab that car and push it on the siding because just to get it out of the way. And I did my YouTube video, and I actually had somebody comment very negatively, not even in constructive criticism, but very negatively about, what kind of modeler am I? I'm not a serious modeler because I have a 40-foot boxcar with a roof walk on it in front of a C44-9. Well, first of all, it's not a C44-9. It's a ET44AC, which yes, they kind of look the same, but it's not the same. And secondly, first of all, it's my railroad. I can do what I want. And thirdly, I used a modeler's license to do that, and I have purpose for having a 40-foot boxcar with a roof walk on my railroad, so it stands out. Me or anybody else that would come down, and anybody else that might say, "Hey, why do you have a 40-foot boxcar on your modern, more or less modern day railroad?" Well, it's a track cleaning car. You noticed it. So you know it's a track cleaning car, so you don't hopefully accidentally grab it while you're operating, kind of thing. So, that's kind of where it comes out. That's where this kind of came from. Um, Fortunately, I mean, I don't like doing this on my YouTube channel, or whether it be YouTube or TikTok or, um, any comments through whatever platform you guys listen to this on, or the Facebook page. I don't like deleting comments, but I chose at that time. If you happen to go over to our YouTube channel and try to look for that comment, um, I chose to not respond at all and just delete the comment, because I don't want negativity in I guess in the model railroad talk world, right? So it's one of those things where while yes, it struck a chord with me, but it wasn't, um, eh, you know, uh, I moved past it, and I thought, this is a good learning experience. So if this is your first episode of this railroad, or of this of listening to this podcast, I can't even talk this morning. Um, or, maybe you've been listening for a little while and you're new coming into this, you will get negativity. You'll get the naysayers. You'll get the rivet counters. You'll get those that are going to say, well, that's not right and I'm just reiterating, look, it's your railroad. If you're having fun and you're happy with what you're doing, that's all that matters. Um, Even if you're prototype modeling and okay, let's say you're prototype modeling the UP, but guess what? You found a locomotive that you thought had a cool paint scheme and you want to run it on your railroad. More power to you. I support that. There's nothing wrong with that. You use that modeler's license as much as you want and can and need to, um, as long as it's enjoyable for you. I mean, I see it in some of these groups too, that, people will set up whether, I don't even know what all brands use the quick Unitrack stuff. I know Kato does, but, anyways, I know Bachman used to, I don't even know who all does it anymore. But anyways, um, in some of these groups I'm in, same thing, people will set it up on a table and they'll lay down the green mat and then lay their track on it, and they're happy with it. They're building a railroad. Okay, to my standards, I'm going for more realistic. For them, you know what? That's what they want. Maybe they're new to the hobby. They don't know, about everything that is out for scenery or track or whatever. Or maybe they just like that more toyish look. I mean, look, a lot of people in the O scale world, they're into the quote unquote toy trains. They like that, you know, uh, three rail and just turning all the power packs, halfway or three quarters of the way up and watching a whole bunch of trains just fly around the layout. Not my thing, but um, I'm not gonna cut them down for it. Do you, whatever makes you happy in this hobby. And that's what makes this hobby so great, is there's more people that are more supportive than they are the naysayers. However, we do have the naysayers in the hobby. And so that's where that kind of modeler's license thing that comes in, that you know what, if it's plausible, if it's something that actually could have been, you know what, use the modeler's license. And if anybody tries to uh say otherwise, tell them it's my railroad. You don't like it, there's the door. I know there was a sign I wanted to get made. Unfortunately, I don't really have any place to put it, but it was like railroad rules, and it went through and had, like, there was like 8 or 10 rules, and the last one was it's my railroad. If you don't like it, there's the door, kind of thing. So, um, but yeah, a miler's license. I know I've talked to a few people and they're like, what? And then of course, other people, it's like, oh yeah, yeah, I know what you're talking about. So I thought it'd be something good to, um, bring up. It's definitely a, um, term that is used, but I feel like it's not used as much as it used to be. And I think some of that has to do with a lot of the ready to run stuff anymore. You've got Scale Trains and Intermountain and Broadway Limited and all great companies, and they're coming out with great detail. They've really in the last 10, 15, 20 years have stepped up their detail on these locomotives and done a great job to where you don't really have to worry with some of these higher end companies. If you buy a locomotive, if okay, well, like back in the day, like, well, prime example, Athearn Blue Box. I've got, I enjoy building them, and you get the Athearn Blue Box, and if you've never done an Athearn Blue Box locomotive, maybe look it up, YouTube, whatever, and maybe I'll do a YouTube video for Athearn Blue Box, just kind of show you, because I have one that is next on the agenda once I get my current one done. But they're not a lot of detail, very simple, very basic, and like the air horns, they're all in a generic place on the hood. Well, that's not necessarily prototypical. With a lot of the new companies coming out, or not new companies, but Broadway Limited and whatnot, they, like I was saying, they put the detail in them. So when you get them, you really don't have to worry too much about unit specific details, because they've already done, if not all, a majority of the legwork for you. So you don't really hear the term, um, Mahler's license as much as you used to. So, just something to think about. So we're going to take a break, and hope you stick around because we'll be back shortly. Are you interested in operations? Are you new to operations? Are you a seasoned operator? Consider joining the Operations Special Interest Group, or OPSIG. The OPSIG is an organization dedicated to operations from the experienced operator to the novice. Their principal purpose is to discuss, develop, and disseminate ways of operating model railroads to realistically emulate practices of the prototype. This includes sharing information on various methods of generating, moving, and controlling traffic to heighten the feeling that our models are an active and integral part of the national rail transportation network, serving shippers and consignees throughout the nation. Their membership is a tremendous resource to exchange information and ideas, and to develop improved ways for hobbyists to learn the art and science of operating a railroad in a particular model railroad. Their quarterly publication, The Dispatcher's Office, is another great resource. It's loaded with articles about operations, including paperwork, planning, execution, and hosting of sessions. Annual membership is only $10 per year. Membership includes 4 issues of the Dispatcher's Office e-version, access to their Dispatcher's Office archives, an industry database to help add realism to your operations, and a directory of operating layouts across the country. If you like to operate or are just becoming aware of this exciting and growing part of the hobby, this is the place. All are welcome. You can find them at www.opsig.org. That's www.opsig. If you are enjoying our podcast, we'd like to invite you to go over to patreon.com/model railroad talk and become a premium supporter over there. All sorts of details over on the Patreon page of ours. Also, if you don't want to get into something that's a monthly thing, but you would like to, hey, I'd like to throw a little support your way, you can always head over to buymeacoffee.com/ModelRailTalk, short for Model Railroad Talk. And you can donate as much or as little as you would like without any monthly reoccurring or anything like that. So if you would like to support us,
head on over to patreon.com/ModelRailroadTalk, or you can head on over to buymeacoffee.com/ModelRailTalk. And to those that have supported this podcast, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart.
We are back from break. Over break, I actually decided to kind of change my plans, if you will, for the second half here, because it dawned on me that the first half I talked about building, making whatever my own track cleaning car, and it got me thinking. Okay, I've over the past probably 4 or 5 months, I've seen in several groups I'm in people, newer people to the hobby, asking about how they keep their, keep the track clean and this and that. And, of course, there's the old traditional method. And then the people that are, well, track cleaning car or build your, and then, people list, you can buy them ready to go. And then people are like, well, I made my own, that kind of thing. So I figured we would, um, talk about that since I've done it, and so far I'm happy with it. So let's kind of dive into that, um, track cleaning a little bit. If you are been in the hobby for a while, you're gonna know this all too well. Keeping your track clean is the best way to do it is to run trains. There's people that will, um, say, hey, the more you run your trains, the better your track will get. Well, there is, and we've talked about this on some very early episodes, some things you can do, and we're not going to get into high detail on this, but some tips if you're new to the hobby and maybe this is your first episode of Model Railroad Talk, you know, take, if available, depending on what scale you're running, um, take those plastic wheel sets on your cars and get rid of them, convert them over to metal wheel sets. I don't care what brand. Um, you want metal wheels because metal wheels do not pick up and transfer dirt as much as plastic ones do. It is proven that plastic wheels will do that. And I don't know the chemistry behind it, but I'm sure it's something to do with plastic is always putting out its oils and grease or whatever from the production of the plastic until they dry out and then they break. Right? I mean, we've ran into that with anything plastic in life. Eventually, plastic will get brittle because all the oils and stuff have been baked, soaked out, whatever. And then what happens? They start cracking. So do yourself a favor and convert your rail cars over to wheels that are metal. There's if you're wondering, like Intermountain, Katie, I know Walthers, Athearn, they're ready to run cars. A lot of them nowadays um, have metal wheel sets on them. But if you go to shows and you pick up some older kits, they're gonna have plastic wheels in them. I don't even put them in. In fact, I have a box that I do have plastic wheels in. The only thing I use plastic wheels for is I've got 3 or 4 sets of trucks that I won't use. They're older trucks, and I'll use the plastic wheels like if I'm building a grade crossing and I'm using plaster or something like that, and I'll use those to kind of go in and make sure they're clearance because usually plastic wheels the flanges are a little bit bigger diameter than the metal, so I'm okay with that because it ensures that my metal wheels will have clearance for the flanges, that kind of thing. So, but that's the first thing you can do to help keep your tracks a little cleaner. Um, the next thing is there are several ways of keeping track clean. back in the day, people used, and people still use it to this day. They'll take wall clipper oil and just put a few small drops on a section of the railroad and run cars around, and eventually it'll go around. Um, I've I, I've read. Okay, so I've never done this. I guess to be honest with you, I'm a little scared because it's kind of 50-50 on the feedback from that. Some people say it's the best thing they've ever done, and they really only have to clean their track once a year, or very rarely. Let's put it that way. And then I've heard of others that say it's a bad thing. I guess I'm kind of leaning towards the may not be the best. Back in the day when it was just DC for controlling our trains, I could see that being perfectly fine. But nowadays, with digital command control and signals being broadcast across the rails going to locomotives, if you go that route, there may be sections where maybe the oil's a little heavier, and maybe in that section that oil may not allow the signal to go through. Okay, so think twice on that. Do your research on that. Think long and hard. I know, like I said, I thought about doing that. However, I don't want to take that risk. My railroad, while I would consider it a medium-sized railroad, I mean, if you had a smaller 4x8, or if you're at N scale, 2 foot by 4 foot, you could try that. Let's face it, with minimal track, it would be easier to clean that off. But with a railroad like mine, I would spend, if I did that and decided I didn't like it, or I started having issues, I'd be spending 2 weeks trying to clean all my tracks. So that's kind of one of those things where I'm like, pass. Um, the next thing I've heard of people doing is using it's Fitz, I think it is, or Flitz or something like that. It's basically kind of like a metal polish. They'll polish the rails and stuff. There again, I understand the concept of it. They'll polish the rails. This brand will put kind of a polish coating on it. There again, with digital command control, I would be wary of anything that's going to leave any kind of good or bad residue, um, as it may block, interrupt, maybe uh, not allow a full signal to get through to your locomotives. And the last thing you want to do is to have a locomotive that goes out of control or goes wonky because it didn't get the right signal from your controller. So, um, but there are companies out there though that make they make ones that actually have a little motor in there, and it's got a little buffing wheel on it, and a lot of that they put like a cleaner. Most of the cleaners I believe that they're using is just like, it's like a simple degreaser cleaner kind of thing. Some people will put rubbing alcohol, isopropyl alcohol in there, like a 70% or so, and that would work all right because that will not leave a residue. Others they've made, which is kind of what I made, where it's basically just a pad that floats on the rail, and it'll move, and underneath the car, and as it goes, it just kind of picks it up. As effective as the ones that have the motors that are, I mean, I've seen those, they're like $100 and some for those cars, which they have great reviews. I just have never used one. I would, I'm considering one, based on how large my layout is. But um, the ones like the one I built that you can buy, um, they do take a little more to get your track clean. You have to run them around more. It's because while you have the abrasive, you don't have the spinning abrasive, if you will, or not abrasive, but cleaning action, I guess, is a better term. So, so there are ways to keep your track clean or clean your track. Obviously, there's the good old Bright Boys, or what I, instead of using Bright Boy, because I found those have gotten so expensive, I actually went on Amazon and found abrasive eraser. for like erasing pen, pens. While I like that, I only use that in places where it's heavily, it needs a good heavy cleaning, because uh, I can use that and it's going to clean more off in a quicker time, fewer swipes. I don't really like using them all the time for the fact that it does put micro grooves into your rail. And those grooves are, the more micro grooves you have, the more dirt that's going to collect, so on and so forth. So while I do use them, use one of those very sparingly. I do have another track cleaner. In fact, I don't know what brand it is. It's basically just like a non-abrasive pencil eraser, almost is the best way to put it. It's a little bit stiffer of a rubber than a pencil eraser, so it won't wear down right away on you. Um, but I'll use that. Okay, this area, it needs cleaned. It's not super dirty. I'll just take that and go over the rail, and it does a fine job. I don't that one I'll use more than I will the abrasive one, just because um, it doesn't scratch the rails as bad. Um, so, but my track cleaning car, leading up to this, I chose to go that route because I'm like, well, first of all, I was able to. It started out. I had a 40-foot box car that because I've got a 484 Santa Fe Northern Steam. It's a Broadway Limited. I've had for years. Okay, I actually had it still from when I got it, and I'm building a passenger car or passenger train for it, the old green Santa Fe Pullman cars or whatever they are. So I want to build a nice, not long, but train like that, so I can get that out once in a while, and run it around. Well, in a batch of cars I'd purchased, the batch, the lot, whatever you want to call it, it had a 40-foot box car, whatever. And that's the one that's still in the box that actually I got to convert over and make a car out of a track clean car out of. But it got me thinking, okay, once I started buying these cars or buying my rolling stock from Scott's Trains, I went ahead and reached out to him, like I stated, and said, "Hey, what's your cheapest Athearn Blue Box kit car? Preferably 40-foot box car. Um, I don't care what the road name is. It's going to be a track cleaning car." And so he got one. I worked with him. He got it shipped to me. And so first of all, everything I've read up to the point of building or setting that car up for track cleaning was, if you're going to make your own track cleaning car, you want the shorter car. The longer cars, if you watch them when they go around curves, the center will float in, or, it floats to the inside of the track, which means if you do that, you're going to have a little bit wider of a pad. Okay. Where a 40-foot box car versus a 50, yeah, you're not thinking it's that much longer, but it does make a difference. You can get by with a little bit narrower of a pad that goes down on your track, and which is good if you have some track that's really close together, and maybe, you cars or whatever, it's just, or scenery. It helps keep the pad from going over and maybe taking out, some scenery you got on the side or whatever. Um, so I went with 40-foot. And let's face it, I know nowadays it's the other thing too, 40-foot boxcar, Athearn Blue Box kits. I don't know if Scott said it on the episode he was on, but I know him and I talk all the time, and he's like, I've got so many of those that he just can't get rid of them, because everybody's either A, they're not interested in kits, or B, they're modern, they're not, that era. Um, so you can find them for, I don't want to say nothing, but really inexpensive. Um, the first thing I did was build the kit. And when I built the kit, I put Katie couplers on it. I actually put on that particular car, I put Katie. Of course, I run the 58s, the scale size, not the number fives. Um, but I put them with the upper and lower shelf on it. I did that because with it being a track cleaning car, I wanted to make sure that there was no way it was going to disconnect and that kind of thing. Number two, like we talked about at the very beginning of the second half with metal wheels. I outfitted it with Intermountain wheels. I use 33-inch on that because that's the right size for that. Because last thing you want to do is have plastic wheels on there and you're trying to clean track, but yet you're making it dirty and transferring dirt. But so it's kind of one of those things. And then from doing my fascia, I have little pieces, strips that are not wide enough that I can really use anywhere. So what I did was I basically took a measurement of my track and I went a little bit over it. And unfortunately, I don't have the measurements, but I want to say it's like 1.5 inches wide by, I think I did maybe 2 inches long, 2.5 inches long, whatever would fit in between the wheels on this 40-foot boxcar, the trucks and the inner wheels. And with a little bit of room because you're going to want it to float up and back a little bit. So that way, if you go over a little imperfection in your track, it's going to be able to float. So I took that and cut that down, verified that it was going to work, fit inside the, what do you want to call it, the profile of the car, and it did. The next thing I did was something simple. I happen to have some roofing nails that are, I want to say they were like 1.5 inches, 2 inches long, but they had the bigger head on them. And real simple, I basically what I did was I measured on the little piece of masonite, hardboard, um, and I measured it, found the center, and the center for the long wise, so it was centered, from left to right of the car, and then I just measured in. I want to say it was like, oh, I don't know, like 3/8 of an inch to half inch in on from each edge, so that way the pins were as close to the same on both sides as they could be. And then I just used some regular old Gorilla Glue, put some Gorilla Glue on there, set the nails down, and let it sit overnight. Um, Once that was done and dried, the next day I came back and did some measurements, marked on the bottom of the car. And actually, I did this before. So the shell I didn't glue on. Okay, so it's just whatever Athens their clip, or whatever pressure. So I measured that, pulled the shell off, um, drilled my holes, and I drilled them slightly bigger than what the diameter of the nails were because, like I stated before, you're going to want it to float up and down, and you're going to want it to float as best as you can in all directions. Not a whole lot, but you're going to want it because of potential imperfections in track, or if you're going over turnouts, you're going to want it to be able to like move to the side a little bit, kick a little bit, because if you have it super tight and only allow it to go up and down, if it does hit, say, go over a turnout, maybe it hits a point, and if that pad moves a little bit, it could potentially derail the car. That's why you want that pad to float side to side, very minimal, but twist side to side and stuff like that. That way that pad kind of kicks rather than taking the whole car with it. Once I got that done, I then in turn added weight to the inside of the car. Um, I want to say the weight for that based on NMRA is like 3 ounces, 3.5 ounces, something like that. I put roughly I think it was like 5 or 5.5 ounces of weight in this car. I wanted the car itself to be heavy for that, for that purpose of what we just talked, in case that pad kicks, there's going to be some weight there that it's just not going to flop over. You've got a little bit of weight that is going to help keep the car on the tracks if there's a slight imperfection in the tracks. Then after I did that, I use for weights, I just use stick on, they're 1/2 ounce stick on car wheel weights. I buy them off Amazon. Um, and I was able to get 2 of them. So I have 1 ounce on the actual pad, the masonite hardboard, whatever you want to call it, itself, pushing down. I would have actually liked to have been able to get another one, but then if I would have put that in there, it would have put it tight, and it wouldn't have had the up and down play like I wanted. So basically, I put them on there, put the car back together, and ran it around. I soon found out, though, and I found this out after several tries of like trying to figure out why is this happening. Um, the other thing that you need to do if you're going to build your own, on each the front and back, or however you want to call it, of that masonite, on the not the long side but the short sides, you're going to want to take like a file, a Dremel, whatever, and you're going to want to shave the edges back at an angle, not necessarily a 45-degree, just at an angle a little bit, for the fact of, as a good example for the Iowa Eastern, or the Kansas City Southern Iowa Eastern division, I've got the lift up section, and I got the swing gate. And depending on the temperature and whatnot, sometimes there's just a ever so slight little, very small slight, not, it doesn't derail the cars. And basically you just hear the clickety clack, but height difference. And so if you leave that hardboard just square, it'll catch those, and guess what's going to happen? It's going to more than likely derail the car, and if you have any cars behind it. So um, just put like a slight angle on it, so if it does hit that, it's going to pick and lift over. The nice thing about this is, for me, I have plenty of, or not plenty, but I've got a couple strips of narrow hardboard that I'm not going to be able to use anywhere on the railroad. So I've got enough, basically enough hardboard to last me for years, for making, when this pad gets worn out or needs changed. All I got to do is go cut my piece to size, grab a couple more of those nails, glue them, and put some weight on them, and put them right. And then I can just put them right back in the car, basically. The nice thing about this setup is it's easy. If every so often I'll lift the car off, I'll pull the pad out from underneath, which it generally comes off. I don't have any stops. I don't need any stops, but I'll lift the car off, take the pad, and I will either depending on how dirty it is, spray a little isopropyl alcohol on it, take a paper towel or a microfiber rag and kind of wipe it. And if it's really dirty, I'll take like a 220 roughly sanding, 220 grit sanding sponge, and just lightly go over to kind of knock off some of the um, I guess the grime, and also because as that moves, that's, let's face it, that's wearing into that pad. So then I'll also use that to kind of level it out, so everything's level again. Now, one thing I need to state is there's 2 sides to the the hardboard. Um, the stuff I use is the unfinished stuff. So it's the brown. If you go on our YouTube channel or our Facebook page, you'll see what I'm talking about. The stuff I buy, there's one side that's smooth, and the other side that it's not finished. It's fairly rough, I guess, coarse, if you will. Um, you want to make sure that that coarse, rough side is down to your tracks. That's what's going to really grab the grime off. The smooth side isn't going to do you any good. It's just basically going to skim along and not really pick anything up. So that's the key right there. But it's a good, inexpensive way to make a car. Um, you know, if you run it in trains a lot, um, it'll help maintain your track to keep it clean. I know not every train, but I know a lot of times I will actually just take a locomotive, hook it up, and I will run it on my incline, which is hidden, even though I have access to it. If something derails, it's limited access. So track cleaning is kind of a pain. So I'll actually run it back and forth several times. There'll be times where I've actually taken a piece of microfiber and cut it to that same size, and I'll actually spray with a little bit of rubbing alcohol, soak it, I guess, set it on the track, put the car on there, and then run it back and forth up and down there. And that's another good way. And then once I do that, I'll take the pad off, or the microfiber off. Then I'll set the car back on and run it back and forth and let that real grip, gritty part of the hardboard pick up all that stuff it just loosened up as well. So um, that's how I clean that. It's good for having in those hidden areas where maybe not necessarily hidden, but maybe scenery's there, or buildings, or it goes through a building somehow, and it's hard to clean unless you remove all that. So that's a good way to keep those bad areas clean. So um, we are excited. Moving on, we are excited. Our next episode, as long as plans go like they should, we will actually have Scott from Scott's Trains back on with us. And he's going to be talking about giving you his, I guess, um, things he looks for when he's purchasing from, whether it be online or at train shows. Just some things so to think about when you go in. I know when him and I have talked about it, it's been it opened my eyes up to stuff. So make sure you tune into episode 93 when that comes out, and check out our YouTube channel, Model Railroad Talk over there. We're doing updates, and with the unknown of TikTok, I'm still going to do videos. I've decided to do. I'm going to try to do a TikTok video on the off weeks or the opposite weeks that I do YouTube. So, um, and no, I have not forgot. Guess what? Um, we have our. The one thing I didn't do was but plan for it, but I am ready for it now, and that is read from our 400 plus thrilling and unbelievable train facts for enthusiasts. Um, it is a book that the girlfriend's daughter got me for Christmas, and it is absolutely awesome. And I am reading an episode, at least for now, for a while. I'm hoping to do it every episode until we get through this entire book. So, um, today's one we're reading the chapter, or whatever you want to call it, humorous anecdotes and superstitions in railroading. So the first one in this one is the legend of Casey Jones. Casey Jones was a legendary railroad engineer known for his skill and bravery, but also for his penchant for playing pranks on his fellow crew members. One humorous anecdote recounts how Casey once replaced the train whistle with a rubber chicken, w- much to the surprise of the unsuspecting colleagues. So there you go, Casey Jones. We all have heard of him. Apparently, he liked playing pranks. So there you go. Uh, from this book, if you're interested, the book title is basically 400 plus thrilling and unbelievable train facts for enthusiasts. It's written by Nathan Ward. Um, Anyways, reach out to us, modelrailroadtalk@gmail.com. You can go to our website, www.modelrailroadtalk.com. We invite you to go over to our YouTube page, like and subscribe us over there. Our subscriber count has been going up. I'm excited. We're well over 600 people, and I'm trying to get to that 1,000 mark just as a goal. No reason really. And same with TikTok. Head over there. Go to our Facebook page, like us over there, Model Railroad Talk, all under Model Railroad Talk. Um, Also, if you are interested and with premium becoming a premium supporter of us, you can go over to Um, Model Railroad Talk, or I'm sorry, patreon.com/Model Railroad Talk. And over there, being a premium subscriber, you get um, added benefits. You get episodes right when we get them recorded, and there's some goodies through time you get that get automatically sent to you. Um, Also, if you're not looking at something that's you don't want to do something that's a reoccurring deal, you can head on over to buymeacoffee.com/mod, MOD, rail, RAILTLK. And you can do whatever there. You can either do a recurring or just a one time. All your support helps go maintain equipment, helps pay for um, the programs we have to use to not only record but edit and all that good stuff. So those that have done that, thank you, thank you, thank you. I know there's several premium supporters over there that they've been with us for quite a while now, and I want to thank each and every one of them for their support throughout this time. And it every little bit helps. So I really, really appreciate it. Um, so yeah, reach out to us if you have any questions. If you have any ideas, by all means, reach out to us. We're always taking ideas. Until the next episode, it's that time. Keep your train on the tracks.